We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
All right, we've only got 14 minutes left, so let's see how many we can get through.
Are you seriously going to stop that?
Dude,
we started so late.
It's not my fault. I mean, it was 100% my fault. But Mark is enjoying getting to know RoomEQ Wizard and his miniDSP 2x4, 2x4, 2x4. Anyways, he's been frequenting the miniDSP website a lot, as they provide some helpful tutorials for using the device with RoomEQ Wizard. He's taken notice of other products that the miniDSP sells, including their nanoAVR with Dirac Live. So he asks, is Dirac Live a step above Audyssey MultEQ XT32? I would not say that.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, I would not say that. It's I like Dirac. I actually got one of the very early versions of Dirac headphone something I tested a long time ago, and I remember liking it. I can't remember what headphone. I think it was an app I tested basically, and it took the if I'm remembering correctly, it took the earbuds that come with your iPod, like the old ones, and made them sound better. I was like, dude, these guys, they made them sound better. They did a good job. But they've been making lots of advancements since then. I think if I would say it's a comparable program to Audyssey MultEQ XT32, except it requires a lot more from you, generally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, it does use a better quality microphone. It does require more processing power, so very often the actual number crunching is being done on a computer or on a server, and then being just the final settings are what gets downloaded to the actual device that sits in the signal chain there. For a long time, it was more like you could make more manual adjustments to it, but now that they have the Audyssey Editor app for most of the newer Den and AVRant receiver models, that sort of equals that side a little bit. Right. So is it a step above? I have to say yes, but I wouldn't say it's as, like, there are some really big Dirac fans who are like, Audyssey's terrible, and now I'm like, no, it really isn't.
No, it really isn't.
That's not what happened. I have to say, yes, I think it's a step above, but not as large as you might think. And there's a few little quirks in there, like Dirac doesn't have an equivalent to dynamic EQ, which I think is a really important feature. So,
and this is the other thing too. You're comparing apples and oranges. You're comparing Dirac, which is mostly in these standalone boxes, which you have to export everything or do everything on the computer before you put it in there, to an AVR, which has, they have to calculate in how much processing power they're going to give that AVR, which limits the amount of the amount of things that Audyssey can do. Could Audyssey do everything Dirac does and more? Right. I guarantee you it could. Yep. 100%.
Well, yeah, like when Audyssey Pro was around, it could do a lot more. It was very similar to what Dirac offers now.
So, and that was years ago. So, it's just, these people are like, oh, well, it's just got so much of this, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, dude, okay. It's a different product. So, is it good? Yes, it's good. It is probably the only, Wipeout with the RSC is pretty good too. But
pretty good.
It's probably the one I would go if I had an option that it was not Audyssey. It's probably the one I would go with.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So the website describes inserting the nanoAVR-DL into the signal chain in between the source and your AV receiver. So would you simply leave Audyssey off? What settings would the AV receiver use? So it's HDMI in. It does all the processing and stuff like that.
It does no decoding, though. So the whole point is whatever source you're using, the source has to be sending out 5.1 or 7.1 PCM.
Right.
That
which means
must be what's coming out of your source.
Then that PCM is going to be changed by this and then sent to the AV receiver. The AV receiver would then be put into some sort of don't change it at all mode.
Right, because the Dirac will apply level adjustments for each channel, distance adjustments for each channel, and EQ adjustments for each channel, which is
will
pretty
it also
much
do crossovers?
And
Just
also the crossover.
Then that's
Yeah.
yes. So then everything else you're just going pure direct or whatever.
Yeah, so yeah, you want your AV receiver basically in direct mode. You don't want Audyssey on. You also don't want any of its base management or distances or levels or anything. You just want to put all of those things at default, put it into direct mode, and it's basically acting as a DAC and an amplifier. That's all
Right.
your AV receiver is doing anymore. It's taking the PCM signal that's been manipulated by the nanoAVR, but it's still a 7.1 PCM signal, and it's just turning that into analog and then amplifying it. That's all you want your AV receiver to do now.
So you would not want it in pure direct, because pure direct shuts off the picture. But
Shuts off the picture.
You would want it in direct mode. You want all your
Direct
speakers to large, and subwoofer
Yep.
subwoofer set to yes.
Correct.
Okay.
And everything else at its out of the box defaults.
Right.
Whatever
And so what you would do, what you would see on, let's pretend that you had let's say that you have an Atmos setup. So this thing can do like the 7.1 part of it, let's say.
It sure can.
Okay.
Yes.
So the 7.1 would go into your receiver, right? But it's coming in as PCM, which means that you could set your receiver to basically multi-channel in, because it's going to take that, whatever that is,
multi-channel in.
You're going to have everything else set up, and then plus DTS, whatever it is.
Neural X
Neural
or
X,
the Dolby
or-
Surround up mixer.
And then that would take whatever's in there, and then extend it to the height channel. So it would make no changes at the base level, the 7.1 level, and then extend it up to the height channels. What you could not do is get a true Dolby Atmos signal.
Or a DTS X.
That would not be possible.
Not going to work, yeah, because the nano AVR is what's connected to your source, and the nano AVR has no decoding at all. So you cannot send an Atmos signal into the nano AVR. It's not going to work.
Yeah. So it's described as wait a second. Wait.
Yep.
I did that. Okay. So it's described as an 8-channel device, aka 7.1. So there's only one subwoofer output. Could he still use the miniDSP 2x4 to calibrate multiple subs along with using the nanoAVR-DL somehow? Doesn't that go after the receiver anyways?
So the miniDSP 2x4, yeah, it's attached to your subwoofer output. It's expecting an analog signal.
So I think you're okay there. You just send it out to the...
Except that the Dirac Live will also equalize the single subwoofer channel.
Oh, then you got a problem there.
So that's a bit of a challenge. However, it's all manually adjustable, so what you could do is just zero out any equalization that was done by Dirac for the subwoofer channel.
There you go.
That'll get fed into your AV receiver. That'll get turned into analog. It'll come out the subwoofer pre-out. You feed that into your miniDSP 2x4 and load your manual EQ settings for your multiple subs into that. So yes, you can do it. It's a little bit of manipulating all the signals in that, but it can be done.
If you do all this, you've got to. There's no way to do it quickly, but you'll have to do an AB with this. You'll have to live with it with all this stuff on, and then you'll have to do it again with Audyssey on. You have to. If you do that, then I would, yeah. So he asks, would the nanoAVR-DL be worthwhile in his setup? What is his receiver? Did he tell us that? He didn't tell us that.
I can't remember. Mark's talked to us plenty of times. I'm sorry, Mark. I can't remember what you were using.
Yeah. Let's pretend he has. Let's pretend he's got Audyssey MultEQ XT32.
Right.
Do I think it would be worthwhile? Is that what you said? Worthwhile.
Worthwhile.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you value. I think I'm going to answer yes. And I think that's because I believe you're going to think so. I think that if someone gave me this option, I'd be like, nah, dog, I got this. I'm cool. I'm cool with Audyssey. All that sounds like way too much trouble. That's what it comes down to for me. Now, I think that he's going to find this to be a value, and no amount of us measuring things and showing him that they sound basically exactly the same would ever convince him otherwise. So I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say no because, one, I don't want you to limit yourself to not being able to use Atmos because this thing exists in your system.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
You can always take it out, though. It's not like it has to.
You can always take it out, but it's $500-something. So I'm
Dude
like,
wants to spend money. Why we can't stop him?
I'm like, spend $20 on the Audyssey editor app. If what you wanted was to play around with individually manually manipulating the EQ of your speakers, the Audyssey editor app lets you do that with Audyssey without having to give up Atmos and DTS:X and Audyssey Dynamic EQ.
Yeah.
So I'm like that.
I 100% agree with you. I already said I
Right.
don't want this, but I think this guy wants it, so I'm going
I
to say
know.
yes. But I think I don't think he has any intention. Maybe he doesn't have any intention of ever going to Atmos, and in which case he's going to be
Maybe.
like, I don't really care
That's
about
Crazy Town Banana Pants, but okay.
that. Nah, it's not Crazy Town. I can understand that too. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.